you're actually taking shelter here in D.C. Imagine that. You're actually in the swamp.
Can you imagine coming to Washington by choice, actually electing to be here rather than being here desperate to leave?
And you're a Floridian, so are you boarding up your house now? Because now you're a Florida resident, at least for the time being.
Yeah, someone has boarded the house up. It is. We're looking at the flight path of this. It's so exciting. It's like being in a disaster movie. It's like, because I love disaster movies. I like the movies where it actually happens, not where they save the day at the end and it doesn't happen. I like the movies where it happens, where, the hurricanes and the tornadoes and everything, ravage cities. The best one is when it tears apart San Francisco, which I think is it Vin Diesel or The Rock? Is it? I can't remember. Either or. I can't remember which. Yeah, but they're interchangeable. But that one where San Francisco gets flattened is my favorite, of course. But it's going directly over my house.
Okay, so this is horribly insensitive. You're actually rooting for the hurricane to make a direct hit.
No, I'm not. Of course, it's going to be absolutely awful, but I'm just trying to make the best of it. Like I think most of us are who, have property down there and love the place. It's weird, South Florida is like another universe. People are a bit different down there, but it is lovely.
Fun fact about Milo, when I had a conversation with him a few days ago, and I said, this hurricane is really going to hit, and you really need to go shopping and pick up supplies. And Milo said, you're exactly correct. And then he came back with bags from Louis Vuitton, from Gucci, and you had somehow ordered a bunch of very expensive tennis shoes online also as well.
Horrible series of lies. Horrible series.
It's all true. Every word
horrible series.
Every word of it is true.
Fabrication.
That's how you're supposed to get water. Do you know what else is interesting? Apparently cheap beer is very popular during hurricanes, because that's apparently how people want to soothe themselves when they get scared, is with cheap American beer.
That'd be like Bud Light or something?
Yeah, stuff like that.
Yeah, I don't buy that anymore after the Seth Rogen, Amy Schumer campaign.
Oh, yeah.
They deserve to go up in smoke off that. But I quite like, there's a beer that's really cheap in Britain called Stella Artois, but over here I think you guys think it's expensive and fancy, so that one's the next best thing.
Yeah, that's a good one for something that's super mass produced. So anyway, Milo, and that's a good point though about Amy Schumer and Seth Rogen. And one thing about you is that we've gone through some of your struggles in terms of your temporary fall from grace that I think you've recovered from quite nicely. And it's interesting how for you having right of center opinions is such a liability. But if you're on the left, so if you're on the right, like we are at Breitbart, it's tough to get any advertising. Even Fox News struggles to get advertising. But if you're on the left and you're in public life, you actually get to be the advertiser. You actually get the deal where you are the spokesperson for Bud Light, for a massive international brand. I mean, that is insanity where we are. And I think people are starting to see through it. I think you're the best example of this.
Well, it's not just if you're a bit on the left. It's not like if you're a middle ranking down the road Democrat. Fine, I have friends who are like that. No problem. It's if you're crazy socialist left, if you're social justice left, if you sign up to these balmy, batty conspiracy theories that drive the sexes and the races apart, if you are, a signatory to this insane worldview, if you buy into this identity politics that is just destroying America, the cohesion in American society, you have to not just be left, you have to be far left. And the further left you go, the more plaudits you get from the entertainment industry, from the media, from academia. And even just, you don't have to be Breitbart or Milo to be punished for being conservative. You could just be a little bit Republican, and you still find yourself victim of all kinds of injustices. It's remarkable to me, coming over from England, where, conservatism is kind of uncool, but you could still have a career in public life. America's way worse.
Yeah, that's a very important point. And we had a story yesterday about how at Breitbart.com, how your pal Dave Rubin, who's a gay, married, liberal atheist, is getting demonetized on YouTube because his opinions are unspeakable. So this war on free speech that we're going through, this war on conservative thought, it is now extending beyond conservatives. It is now extending to people who will listen to conservatives.
Oh, yes. And, Megyn Kelly got it when she tried to interview Alex Jones. Alex Jones is a very colorful character with some opinions that I find balmy, but on other things, he was right before others. I mean, so my feelings about him are complicated. And this is one of the things the left does. It's old Alinsky tactics. You can't even interview somebody who is interesting in public life because they will come for you and say that you are endorsing them or giving them a platform, this stupid expression. No, Alex Jones has millions of listeners. He is quite obviously newsworthy, very, very clearly had an influence in the last election. Why on earth shouldn't a journalist be allowed to interview him? But Megyn Kelly, I mean, for all of her faults, she did pick a good interviewee, and it could have been great.
Sure.
And it, about just about everything else about that show was awful, but the choice of guests was really interesting.
Yeah.
And could have been wonderful, but she got it in the neck. I get it in the neck sometimes when I want to interview colorful characters from the right. It's like just having a conversation with someone means you agree with everything they say. I think this is a consequence of identity politics, where people kind of get themselves into little clubs where there's the gays, there's the women, there's, the whatever, and those people only talk to each other and agree on everything. Well, actually, we don't.
Yes, and it's one of these things where Alex Jones has gotten some stuff wrong over the years. I'm an InfoWars listener, and I don't agree with a huge portion of what he says, but I didn't know that was the point, where you're supposed to agree with everything. And he's gotten a few huge ones wrong, and they're pretty obvious. But the point is that the establishment press gets stuff wrong every day. CNN has been humiliated time and time again over the last 2 years. We're going to watch people all day long explain how we created this Category 4 hurricane that's going to slam Florida, go straight up the spine and into the center of the United States. And that was, Milo, that was your hairspray that did that.
It was my hairspray. Because I don't have I was going to say I don't have an electric car, but of course we have a Tesla now. So maybe I'm
you're part of the solution.
I'm part.
You're a hero. You're a hero, because you could, and it is a gold-plated Tesla, is it not?
Yeah, it is. It's imagine loving somebody so much that when they say to you, we have money enough for a Lambo, but can I get a Tesla? You say yes. Imagine that. No, but it's worse than you suggest. It's even worse than you suggest, because it's not just that CNN gets way more things wrong than Alex Jones. They do it on purpose. They lie to people.
Yes.
And that would have been a fairly outrageous and crazy thing to say, and you would have been sort of thrown in the box of crazy conservative conspiracy theorists, maybe even 2 or 3 years ago, for saying that. But now everyone realizes it. And it's gone beyond the point where any sort of reasonable person can give them the benefit of the doubt yet again. They're just liars. And as I interviewed Alex Jones, as some listeners will know, for my YouTube channel, and it was really interesting. It's had like 500,000 views. It was a great interview, probably the best one he's ever done. And I wanted to do the interview that CBS or ABC or whatever never did. And I think we accomplished that. And I believe that he believes what he's saying when he says it, even if he's wrong and even if he changes his mind about things. You can't say that about CNN journalists.
Sure. And you've got a lot of stuff on your plate. But one thing that you've been doing on YouTube, you've been doing these Milo Meets, these sort of long form interviews. Talk to us about these.
Well, I try to collect interesting, unusual people, or people that I think that the public has the wrong idea about. So on Facebook, people are always whining at me when I, hang out with Martin Shkreli, the farmer bro, who raised the price of certain drugs and is a sort of professional irritant on the internet. But I find him interesting, and I like to surround myself with people who are interesting, especially if I don't agree with what they say, and especially if I don't particularly like them. So I found Alex Jones interesting as a person, as a human being, because no one's ever really interviewed him as a human being. They've interviewed him as a sort of pop culture phenomenon, as a conspiracy theorist, as a whatever. They've interviewed him as a sort of dangerous abstract concept.
Right.
But they've never asked about him, like what his life is like, whether he gets hurt by criticism. I'd never seen that in my life before, so I decided to do it. And I tried to do that as well with other people in the news. So I did it more recently with James Damore, the guy who got fired from Google for daring to say it. He says Google can be very intolerant of different opinions. So for his different opinion, he was, of course, promptly fired.
Of course.
And anyway, so I interviewed him, and I was trying to understand why he did what he did. He must have known what was coming to him, what he's going to do with his life now, how he feels about it. Much more personal questions of the type that I don't think the mainstream media does anymore, really. I mean, the sort of...
But they're not given permission. You have to treat Jones like he's a destructive force. So what I'm saying is that I treat CNN like they're a destructive force, because, as you say, they're willfully manipulating the news in order to undermine the president. They're trying to nullify an election. They're completely disparaging to much of the American people, and they spread lies like about the climate change nonsense over and over again. There's examples every single day. Yet Alex Jones is untouchable. It's such a silly conversation. I don't even want to continue to have it, Milo. I want to talk about Free Speech Week.
Neither do I.
I want to talk about Free Speech Week, which is coming up. And so this is I don't want to call it your revenge on Berkeley. I'm specifically not going to call it that.
It's not about vengeance.
I'm
it's
not
about
going
justice.
to call it that.
It's not about vengeance. It's about justice.
So people know that I'm a Berkeley graduate, and I have a lot of experience on the campus, and I was active with campus politics and stuff like that. And you've really seen a go from where right of center views were not appreciated. It was just the beginning of the era where people get shouted down for voicing right of center views. And now we are at the point where there are literally Antifa riots if a conservative dares to give an opinion on a campus like this. So Milo has created Free Speech Week, and you give us the details on what's happening.
Well, as many people will remember from February, I think it was. Yes, February. I was chased out in an armored SUV from an underground car park. It was very exciting. I was chased out of UC Berkeley by these armed mobs, which actually aren't a joke because they caused $100,000 worth of damage to UC Berkeley, $500,000 worth of damage to downtown Berkeley. People got pepper sprayed in the face, beaten up in the streets while the police did nothing. We're familiar with these scenes now. But I wasn't the first and the only. I was the first, but I wasn't the only one this year to be effectively banned from speaking at Berkeley as a result of the university's policing policies. Happened to David Horowitz, who is a hero to many in the conservative movement and a very mild-mannered gentleman and a sweet guy. Ann Coulter, 12-time New York Times best-selling author, also prevented from speaking by UC Berkeley's, oddly applied, let's say, inconsistently applied security and policing policies. So I've rounded up everybody who was prevented from speaking at Berkeley this year, plus a load of others, for a 4-day extravaganza. Each of the 4 days is going to be dedicated to one of the major threats to free speech in America today. So the first one is Feminism Awareness Day. The second one will be Islamic Peace and Tolerance Day. Third day is called Zuck 2020, about Silicon Valley.
Right. Zuck 2020, as in Zuckerberg, who's going to be running for president in 2020, we believe.
I mean, I want to see Zuckerberg v. West. I want Kanye to run for the Republicans. If Kanye runs for the Republicans, then I'll maybe I'll vote Republican if I'm allowed by then.
Yeah, well, we'll see. Maybe Milo will be a dreamer. We're gonna have to amend. We're gonna executive amnesty for Milo.
They had
just Milo.
They had that because the social media companies are all so left wing. They had that thing like my immigration story as a Snapchat filter the other day. It wasn't the other day. It was like a few weeks ago or something. And my immigration story, and I just put entered legally, created 20 jobs with a smiling picture of me. My Anyway, the final day is going to be called Mario Savio is Dead. And Mario Savio, of course, the founder of the free speech movement in Berkeley in the 60s. We will be giving out inaugural Mario Savio Awards for free speech. I won't tell you who to or who will be giving them. You'll have to show up for that. I'm excited to tell you, and I think this is the first time that we have announced this publicly, that David Horowitz and are both confirmed, as is Pamela Geller, who I know most of your listeners will be huge fans of. We have another person that longtime Breitbart listeners and Breitbart fans will be extremely excited about, which I hope to be able to announce on Monday. So it is an action-packed, personality-packed, conservative fun fest that is going to send the left absolutely reeling. This is really the greatest lineup of mischievous, dissident, populist, nationalist, anti-political correctness conservatives that may be assembled ever. And we're doing it at the home of free speech, UC Berkeley. And this really is their opportunity to draw a line in the sand and say, okay, we've had our fun, but now we're going to let you actually do this because we are legally obliged to, or for them to attempt to undermine this event too. There's another speaker, a more left-wing speaker, who's going to be at Berkeley, I think on the 15th or something, and they have said he can't have the whole auditorium, even though he's had 2,500 people waiting for tickets. He can only fill 1,000 of the 2,000 available seats for security reasons. Well, we won't be having any of that. We will be requiring that they meet their First Amendment obligations.
Well, and I assume you've reached out to liberals and people on the left to join because they're the ones who claim that they're for tolerance, right, Milo?
Of course. Well, we're gonna have gays, we're gonna have women, we're gonna have blacks, we're gonna have drag queens, we're gonna have all kinds of of personalities and all kinds of identities at Free Speech
Did you
Week.
lump in blacks with gays and drag queens?
Yes.
Okay. Just checking. Just
Why?
making
Is
sure.
that bad?
I don't know if it's
I don't
bad.
know what the rules are.
I was just making that observation.
I don't care what the rules are. I don't know what the rules are. I'm not interested in what the rules are. I'm interested in what's inside people's heads.
Okay, so
I'm interested in what people believe, not how they look on the outside or who they want to have sex with. So
let me grill you on something though, because here's the deal. You've already proved your point that Berkeley is completely intolerant to free speech. You proved it last year. These campuses, and we're going to get into a couple of stories that we have on the front page of Breitbart now with you later on about the closing off of the American mind in academia that are just so stunning. And they're not going to surprise you, but they'll surprise some of our listeners who are still buying the myth that academia is open-minded. But you've already proved your point. So why are you going to risk your life, going to risk your safety, put a bunch of capital on the line to prove a point you've already proved? Why are you doing it?
Because I'm not like other conservatives. I don't just want to point at the problem and whine about it. I want to fix it. I'm not, doctors don't just say, oh, you've got syphilis and then walk out of the room and leave you to it. They say, you've got syphilis and here is what you should take for it. Here's how to, they want to treat the problem. I've identified the problem. I've identified the problem more spectacularly and more sensationally, I guess, than anybody else. I've identified the problem in a big way. It was big national news. And now I want to go about fixing it. And by fixing it, I mean, I want to beat UC Berkeley. I want to force them to police properly. I want them to force them to be as helpful with us and as compliant and as good colleagues as they can be with us, so that as a conservative event for the first time perhaps in half a decade can successfully be staged at UC Berkeley. I want this to send a message to other colleges so that when I start my new Troll Academy tour immediately after Berkeley Free Speech Week, I want to send a message to other colleges that if they are publicly funded institutions, they are legally required to allow different opinions on campus. If their students want to hear from speakers who are shock horror, as I love to say, to the right of Jane Fonda, then they have to allow for that, and they have to treat us the same. They can't jack up these crazy security fees when they don't for other speakers, who have different politics or whatever. They must treat us blind to our viewpoints. And so, rather than being like, establishment conservatives who will write long, meandering, impassioned essays about the problem, I actually want to show up and do something about it.
Bill in Ohio. Bill, you want to talk about Steve Bannon a little bit in DACA? Go ahead.
Yes. Good morning. One of the things, I'm a little bit older than you gentlemen, and I lived and was active during the civil rights movement. And the bottom line is I look at Steve Bannon as a guy who gets it and who has a long game and understands our opponent's long game. And, and what I'm saying, when you talk about DACA, we're talking about DACA. We get too emotional about it. We need to see it for what it is. It's part of the left's long game, because all they want is control. I mean, once they get control, they'll sort the other stuff out. That's the way they look at it. But one thing I never hear anyone talking about, everybody talks about the jobs they're taking away from American citizens. I look at, they're taking jobs away from teenagers and college kids home on break that used to be jobs that they did. And now what they've done is they forced the conversation over to a $15 minimum wage, where we're taking jobs that were starter jobs for teenagers and college kids and trying to make them living wage jobs where you're going to support a family on. Because they're trying to get the masses into a narrow mold. This is the lifestyle that you will have, and no more, no less. Okay, and then all of the aristocracy up here, will pull all the strings. And I want to ask Milo if he sees this long game in a similar way, or does he think I'm just way off the theme?
Yeah, thanks, Bill. And we'll let Milo respond. Go ahead.
So I spent some time with Steve. I was lucky enough to see him this week. And no, I think you're absolutely right. It's talking about the long game.
Did you just break news there?
What?
Did you just break news there?
No, I think I told somebody else that.
Wow. Milo and Steve meeting in the minds. All right, interesting.
Uncle Steve.
Okay, so
It's interesting you say about the long game. It's such a funny function of conservatives that, constantly being on the defensive and reacting to other stuff. When you look at how much planning and how much foresight and how much investment in the future you get from liberals, whether it's in academia or whether it's in entertainment industry or whatever, they really kind of hunker down and plan for the long term. It's always been surprising to me that conservatives who like to think of themselves as being the ones who do history, the ones who who know what happened and why we shouldn't be doomed to repeat it, the ones who are like protecting statues from getting torn down, are at the same time the ones that make the sort of most ludicrous short-term decisions when it comes to actually fighting on politics. So yeah, no, Steve is one of the people that I have encountered in my life who understands the left the best. And
you said you're devoted to him.
I have. No, I'm the founding member and life president of the Steve Bannon fan club, which I only get told Politico to annoy you because I know that you enjoy it so much when I praise you in print. So I gave him the floor.
I don't mind it. I need a hype man because the trolls are coming out. So I need some people.
You have an amazing. We don't have to talk about it but you have an amazing stalker that I've been absolutely fascinated with. I've been loving it.
Well, good. I'm glad it can be entertaining to you. And you're selling Bannon 2020 shirts on your website too.
Oh, of course.
And
I love it.
Steve's getting a cut of that. I doubt it. I doubt it.
I'll take him for lunch once in a while.
Yeah. Let's see if he drops a lawsuit on you. So one other thing that Bill said I wanted to get you to comment on was Bill talking about the whole minimum wage discussion, which is that I worked a very menial job at a batting cage. As my first job was a fantastic experience.
What is a batting cage?
It's where you practice baseball indoors. It's an indoor baseball facility.
That sounds
basically
really
a gym
boring.
for
Why
practice.
would you do that?
But it was fantastic because I love playing baseball and I love hanging out with guys who love baseball.
So it's just you just hit it over and over.
Yeah, it's an incredible exercise. It's super fun. No, why would you run? Run for suckers. Come on, man.
That sounds awesome.
No. So it was a great experience, and Bill's correct, and I have no reason to think he's not. We've shifted this focus from giving people experience that hopefully they can use. My first job was in a batting cage. Now I get to be editor-in-chief of Breitbart News, and I get to host national radio. It's fantastic, and it all started with that job at 16. And people kind of treat they treat a minimum wage as it's like an end goal. Shouldn't it be, if you need the government to grant you a raise from $12.50 an hour to $15 an hour, that's not a good life plan for you.
No, and I kind of have two fairly controversial opinions on this subject. One is I think a fairly wholesale dismantling of the welfare state and of minimum wage controls is probably good for everybody.
Sure.
And two, I believe in regressive taxation to go alongside that. So I think that you should be taxed less the more money.
Wow.
This is a libertarian thing. And the reason being, that's how the system already works. Rich people already don't pay tax. So rather than have this huge tax code, just take everybody out of this hugely stupid, complex system. Like, get rid of all the accountants, get rid of all the tax lawyers, just nuke that whole industry, and just have an honest accounting of like how the tax system already works. And get rid of the top rate intelligence. The reason for this, of course, is aspiration. So it's you charge people at the bottom of the pile a very low but sensible amount of tax to cover basic service infrastructure in the military. And then as you get further on, you start to earn like 500, 600, $1 million. You get taken out of tax as a reward basically for the number of jobs you're creating, the value you're creating in the economy. But for ordinary people, it's an incentive to pop up to the next tier, to get that promotion. And the idea is that everybody's incentivized to work harder, which has great knock-on effects.
What,
for the rest
incentives?
of the economy.
Not just getting a handout from a politician to buy your vote?
Crazy, I know. But yeah, so I would take it way further than probably even you guys, and actually set up real, honest financial incentives for people to work hard, improve their lives,
Mark it down,
the lives
folks.
of their families.
Mark it down, folks. It's September 8th, 2017. Milo said he's willing to take it further than I will on a certain topic. Just note that. I want to memorialize this moment. Okay.
No, regressive taxation. It's already how the system works. We should just be honest about it.
I have tons more to ask you about Milo, but the calls are fired up to speak to you, and let's get more of them in here. Don in California, line 3. Good question for Milo, sir.
Hi, Milo. It's a pleasure to talk to you, my friend. I really respect your stand and almost the marks and the minutiae that you're wading through to get your point across. But I stand with you, brother. I understand that you're on schedule to come to Cal State Fullerton.
Yes, I am.
Can you say when that is yet, or is that?
I don't think we're announcing the date just yet. I think somebody leaked it, as always happens. So UC Berkeley leaks the date. Leaks a speculative list of speakers for Free Speech Week, and I think they did it to give Antifa a heads up so they could mobilize ahead of time.
Wow.
I mean, I don't mind accusing him of it because there's no other reasonable explanation for it. Why would they go to the press on the record and give the names of people we hadn't even officially invited yet, unless it was to drum up opposition to the event? There's no other reasonable conclusion to draw. So Cal State Fullerton, somebody has let you know that I'm speaking there. I think probably, again, Cal State Fullerton has gone to the press or something. Yeah, definitely doing it. I'm pretty sure that contract's signed. We have about 40 dates coming up in the next 7 or 8 months, so I can't tell you definitively, but I think we're signed there, and I think we're pretty sure we're going to be there.
Don, I have a question for you. Do you live in the Fullerton area, or are you connected to the school?
I do. I do, and I just wanted to address one issue that show you the difference between the Berkeley police and the Fullerton police.
Mm-hmm.
Fullerton PD is very stealth police department, and they don't put up with much BS. And unless, and this, I guess, this is a statement and a question at the same time. Would the campus authorities limit what the Fullerton police can do to squelch Antifa?
So it depends. Some campuses have their own police force, and they are licensed badged officers, but they work specifically on campus rather than for the local town. And so when that police force and the other local police force get in touch with one another, and the university gets in touch as well, and all the rest of it, sometimes the university has the say on policing strategy. Sometimes it's the local mayor. Sometimes they come to an accord because they all have the same politics and they all want the same things. So in DePaul, for instance, where famously we had the stage.
DePaul is Chicago?
Yes, DePaul in Chicago, where the stage was rushed by Black Lives Matter protesters. DePaul University instructed Chicago PD to stand down. So I was having a fist swung in my face. Microphones were being snatched. The audience was completely derailed. But the vice president of DePaul was telling Chicago PD not to intervene, despite the fact that I was saying on a mic, on stage, will someone please help?
Okay, Don.
So the answer is I don't know, and we can't give any guarantees. It's really up to the cluster of institutions that make those decisions, and it's different for every school.
And Don, I should know this, but is Cal State Fullerton, they're not quite as left-wing as some of these other places, are they? Or have they gotten...
No, but they're still a part of the Cal State. They're not UC, but they're the Cal State Fullerton. There's a distinction, and I'm not sure exactly what it is, but no, they're not. And Orange County is certainly the antithesis of what Berkeley is. So
yes,
I would love to see you have a big deal here and let the campus have Fullerton PD have full range, or the entire Orange County Police Department. If you remember when President Trump or the candidate Trump came to the Orange County Fairgrounds, the 28 agencies of the Orange County law enforcement came together, and they kept that under wraps. None of the problems that happened on the fairgrounds.
Yeah,
they all happened outside.
Don, I think we get the gist here, and I want to get more people in here, but it's a very important point, and just shows you that municipalities and localities like Orange County are just going to be better at policing themselves.
UC Irvine had Orange County people there too. They had 5 different police forces, and it was much better police, that event.
Okay, great.
Absolutely.
All right. Let's continue.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Don. Good stuff from both of you guys. So, but one thing I want to ask Milo is, are we having an issue with Don's line? Because Don's okay. There you go.
Just keep him for the hour.
Yeah, let's just
he seemed lovely. Let's just hang on to him.
Breitbart News Daily with Alex, Milo, and Don from Fullerton. Yeah, okay.
Don from Florida.
Yeah. Okay. So good stuff. Let me ask you the implications here. What happens to you? What's your next play when we think everyone thinks that there's a chance this goes on, but they think more likely something's going to come up, some sort of last minute fees. Antifa's not going to let you get to the stage, and this thing is going to go bust. We hope that doesn't happen. We hope Berkeley does what it's known for, which is honor free speech, and it proves us wrong. But we think that most likely this thing is going to become total chaos and a media spectacle where you never hear from any of the speakers. So in the event that happens, Milo, what is at stake for UC Berkeley in your view? Anything?
Well, I sincerely hope that doesn't happen, because we do genuinely want to stage these events. We're not spending all this money for a publicity stunt. We're spending all this money so that students can actually be exposed to different points of view. Now, of course, the protests from the other side are amusing and establish our point for us, but we do genuinely, sincerely want these events to happen, which is an important thing to point out. If they don't, and if it's clearly UC Berkeley's fault, this is serious. This is really big stuff. This is
Rockport, Texas, as we continue to work for and with Operation.
This is the moment when conservatives will have to say, all right, that's it. We've had enough. We are going for full defunding of the system. You'll remember that Trump tweeted after I was run off the UC Berkeley campus. Trump tweeted, if Berkeley, can't keep its speakers safe, and then all caps, no federal funds, and he was sending a signal in his own, unique, inimitable way. He was sending a signal that the federal government is watching. And I think that's the reason that we're getting very different signals from colleges this time around. We're getting very different responses, and they're giving very different quotes to the press. It appears to me that they have been talking. They have been talking to amongst themselves over summer, and they have come to the conclusion that they're just going to have to hold their nose and let the conservatives do it. Maybe charge them a bit too much for security, make their life as difficult as possible, but otherwise let it happen. Because if they don't, my entire tour will be dedicated to the defunding of American higher education, and we might even get it done. So, I hope for their sake.
And this is the problem, is the stakes are so low for Berkeley because they're federally funded, they're federally subsidized to a massive extent, and all the professors are tenured, they're hard to fire, and so they're not rewarded for bravery, they're rewarded for cowardice. They're rewarded for cowardice, and
it's perverse incentives, Yes. If they have every reason to play it safe and stick to their far left social justice guns, and no reason to stand up for academic freedom.
Let's talk to Eric in Texas on line 4. Eric wants to ask you about Trump working with the Dems. Go ahead, Eric.
Yes, thank you, Alex. Good morning to both of you. I appreciate the opportunity to ask Milo a question. Before I ask my question, I just want to say how much I appreciate Milo's intellect, his courage, his eloquence. You, sir, are one of the most powerful weapons we have in our quiver. You're fighting for my children is the way I look at it. So thank you for what you're doing.
Amen.
I want to ask you guys, what you think. I've been on the Trump train since August of 2015. I was a Rand Paul supporter, and I switched early on. And I took a lot of abuse. I've lost some friends over the last 2 years. It's been hard. We're in a position where we have a weak Congress that can't seem to do what they promised. And I see the president making a move here as a change of tactic, but not of ideology. I want to know, Milo, do you agree? Do you think what he's doing is an effort to box the Democrats in and get what he wants in terms of his agenda down the road? Or are you concerned, as I've heard many on my side of the field, such as Ann Coulter, for example, a voice over the last day or two? What's your read, sir? I'm curious.
Thank you for the question and for the lovely words.
Let's pot down Eric, and then I think Milo can respond.
I would never dare question anything that the great Queen Ann Coulter has to say, and I think on this she's right too. It does seem like there's something bad in the air in the Oval Office. I just hope it's not. I hope it's not the case that Trump is allowing his natural instincts to annoy and upset and troll people to actually drive him into bad policy decisions. Like, is he really more concerned with upsetting and blindsiding and overruling Paul Ryan than he is about doing the right deal or, sending the right messages to his? But I don't know. I think it's reasonable to say that lots of Trump's core supporters and his base are at least they have one eyebrow raised, to put it mildly, at this point. And I think, one more of these and then we'll start to really have a discussion. But,
right. And Milo, we've gone into this in some detail on the show, is that the Republicans put out a terrible plan. The Democrats put out a terrible plan. It's sort of dividing by zero at that point. You're going to get zero. And the president has been let down so many times by Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan and the establishment. That's all pretty obvious points. But the thing that I'm concerned about, you start connecting the dots, and we've got some big stories coming out this morning, one in particular from Neil Monroe, trying to get White House to comment on this before we go forward with it. But it's about Jared Kushner helping the top Democratic senators lobby the White House for DACA amnesty. We know Ivanka's been a big DACA amnesty dreamer proponent. And this is the sort of thing where this is not what we voted for. We didn't vote for Jared and Ivanka to push for amnesty for people. And it's the sort of thing where we don't know how seriously the president is taking their advice. And if it is seriously, that's a major problem, man.
Well, the country turned down McCain and turned down Romney. They very specifically and clearly do not want President Javanka. They very obviously do not want that agenda. They do not want that set of ideas. If you want, this sort of wishy-washy, slightly right of center, bleeding heart, compassionate nonsense. Yeah. This sort of emotional incontinence that the pair of them seem to exhibit. It's not what America voted for, and it's not what they want. I mean, Trump gets more popular when he sticks to his guns and sticks to the reasons he was elected. And if that is changing with the exit of his former most senior advisor, and if that is changing now that the balance of power shifted in the Oval Office, I think he's going to find a lot of his support evaporating.
Yeah, and one of these things where Lindsey Graham's going to, I think, come up on the show a little more often because he's actually seems to have the best plan to repeal Obamacare, so it'll be very interesting to see how that goes. But he's no friend of the anti-establishment right on immigration, and there are reports that around the same time Jared was lobbying the president for more DACA amnesty, that Graham was pushing for something to go way beyond amnesty for the Dreamers. And so that's what we're concerned about. Is this is a slippery slope down to an establishment open borders policy that's just going to backfire. Okay, so I want to ask you about a couple other topics. Milo is our guest. Pick up the book Dangerous, also available now in audiobook, which is fantastic.
It's really good, by the way. I was listening to it because I sometimes watch myself on YouTube to help fall asleep at night. And I was listening to the audiobook last night. It's really good.
Okay, good. Well, Milo endorses his own audiobook. So
nobody else is going to. I may as well praise myself. I get one compliment a year from you. The rest I have to give myself.
I give you plenty compliments and an hour of live radio to sell product. I mean, that's pretty high praise. Okay, so let's so I want to do a little rapid fire. We got about 7-8 minutes left in the show and a ton to get to still. Okay, a Wall Street Journal put out a big story yesterday. Americans losing faith in college degrees, according to polls. A lot of these are men, young adults, rural residents increasingly say college isn't worth the cost. What do you think?
It isn't worth the cost. And there's a lovely tradition in America, which we don't have in Europe, of homeschooling, and long may it continue. And hopefully it will. I mean, look, if I think about how smart my mom was, and my mom had, many flaws, many faults, but definitely smarter than any of my high school teachers, and probably smarter than most of my professors. I think she'd have done a better job with most kids than most professors. College degrees are seems to be a prerequisite for moving in certain circles in America these days. But if you look at what students are actually teaching, in many cases they come out less well equipped to deal with the real world than they were when they went in.
Absolutely.
They come out dumber than when they started. If your child is considering any subject that ends with the word studies, immediately remove them from the education system, because they're going to come out stupider than when they went in.
Okay, Camille Paglia, who is a feminist writer, usually for Salon and other left-of-center publications, has said that transgender propagandists are committing child abuse. This is from a feminist, lesbian, atheist thinker who says transgender propagandists committing child abuse. Your thoughts?
My thoughts are it's remarkable that that's even news, because it's so blindingly obvious that that's the case. Putting your frontal lobes aren't even formed until, if you're a guy, your 20s, and they're presuming to guess, how a child is going to look. This transgender thing is crazy. And she makes another point, not in that article, but in a prior piece. An obsession with transgenderism and transsexualism in its various forms has often preceded the fall of great civilizations. It happened in Rome, happened in Greece, happened in all, because she has this great, deep, excellent knowledge. No, this deep, excellent knowledge of ancient history, she's so brilliant. And she's a new book out, by the way. I think it's called Sex, Gender, and something. And it's a red cover. It's very, very good.
I'm going to release a book called Sex. It's actually going to be about anti-establishment politics in America, but I think it'll sell more.
Just call it Sex.
Yeah, I'm just going to call it Sex. Yeah,
we had Madonna's
copy.
Sex book in the 80s and 90s, and then we got Milo's Sex book in the 2010s.
Yeah. The book was perfect, aside from had nothing to do with the title. All right, let's get in Clint in Georgia.
Clickbait, like literary clickbait.
I want to bring in Clint in Georgia, line 3. Clint, you're on with Alex and Milo.
Hey, thanks, Alex. I'm a fan. I listen most mornings. I've learned quite a bit from you. And
Thanks so
Milo,
much.
fan as well. I've watched a bunch of your videos. I'm a pastor down here in Atlanta, Georgia. I don't know if you've gotten a chance to talk to many non-denominational pastors, but I appreciate your voice in the conservative world, because it really just shows that, it's about the best ideas rather than the most forceful agenda, even though, you're coming from who you're attracted to background. So I'd love to just sit down and chat, but to keep it quick, my question really is about your perspective on how gays are treated in church, especially here in the South. You know, I'm a non-denominational church. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. There's a lot of Baptists down here.
Yeah, I'm familiar.
You know, some people think that being gay is an automatic ticket to hell. I do not. I consider you a brother in Christ, you know, even though you're Catholic.
I wouldn't mind, you know, I'd be running the place inside a fortnight.
A fortnight specifically.
Anyway,
on the clock.
If you've encountered the issue, how gays, you know, that do consider themselves Christian are treated, whether they're allowed to serve or, you know, the level of humanity they're afforded, you know, considered subhuman.
Sure.
I don't know. You know,
thanks for the question.
I'd love to chat, but
thank you so much for the question. Well, I can tell you, I mean, some people who listen to me regularly and read my stuff regularly will predict what I'm about to say, but it is true, and I'm going to tell you again anyway. On the rare occasion that, I mean, I can only speak to personal experience from Catholic churches where people, you know, and Catholics are the most compassionate and lovely people that you'll ever meet. Because they know it's a church for sinners, you know, so they're pretty welcoming of just about anyone. I will tell you this: I had a college tour where there was, you know, the F word for gays on the side of my bus in, you know, 2-foot high letters. I don't think that word has ever been printed that large in the history of the English language. I would get out at truck stops in very weird clothes and all the rest of it. And you know, I'd get truckers come over to me and say, I know who you are. I love what you do, man. Don't agree with the lifestyle, but I think you're great. Contrast that with the attitude from social justice elites on the coasts, from, you know, whether it's BuzzFeed bloggers in New York or the Hollywood elites on the West Coast, to gay people with the wrong opinions. I've been treated with nothing but respect and compassion and kindness in the South in America, everywhere I've gone. I've been treated with nothing but raging contempt and hatred by people on the coasts who are supposedly, you know, the champions of tolerance, because I have the wrong political opinions. That's remarkable to me. It's like, you know, we'll have you, but only if you believe the right things. Well, I don't know what could be more bigoted than that. I have been on the receiving end of more, you know, fact-free, prejudicial bigotry from people who have crowned themselves as supposed champions of minorities as a result of what I say than I have ever experienced from people of faith in the South here or back in Europe. And I can say that with absolute sincerity, and most gay people I know agree with me.
Yes, I think that's totally accurate, and it's something that if you're not listening to shows like this or following Milo online, remember to Google Milo. Make sure to check out his Facebook page.
You're so good at this. Thank you.
Pick up Dangerous, must-read book, New York Times bestseller. Despite their cooking the book, still made it, which is impressive. I mean, what a powerful voice, and we'll have you back soon, Milo. It's such a bummer for me because I wanted to ask you about the new AI, which actually determines if you're gay or straight.
Actual gaydar.
Yeah, actual gaydar.
Did you know that you can tell if someone's gay from their face?
Yeah, apparently you can. Charles Murray.
I'm going to put you in the algorithm.
Charles Murray now can't walk around Harvard without a police escort. Betsy DeVos doing something incredible, scrapping Obama's campus sex policy that was using really the government against young men. So tons of stuff. But maybe we'll have to do a podcast on that or something, Milo.
I think we will. Watch this space.
All right. Appreciate your time.
We will make America great again.